If you use Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe has thoughtfully allowed for the animated text in your After Effects compositions to be easily updated right within your Premiere project. Rather than having to create all your lower thirds in After Effects, we can now build one template and easily replace what the text says inside of Premiere. So here in my composition, I've got the beginnings of a template for a lower third. You see I have all these animated elements here, and I've designated a top and bottom area for the person's name and their occupation. So it's important that we make this large enough to where we can fit the longest person's name and whatever long title they might have. So all we need to do now is add some text. So I'm going to park my playhead right here, and let's introduce a new bit of text. Let's come here to select our horizontal type tool, and I'm just going to lay down some type, and we'll reformat this here in a second. This person's name, I believe, is Kelly, and she is a designer. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. We'll move this down, and let's go ahead and move as well in the composition window. Let's click this down here, and let's indent this a little bit. I'm going to use the arrow keys to do that. I'm going to hit right arrow key, and we'll shift to make it move in 10 increments. So now we have Kelly and Kelly. Obviously, her occupation is a designer. And for her name, let's go ahead and type in a longer name. And I'm going to change out I want this to be semi-bold. I don't want it to be white. I would like for it to be some other color, maybe somewhere in there, a yellow. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and size this up a little bit as well. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Although it's not animated, so obviously we need to come up with some kind of animation. And I've already done a little bit of the homework for us. Let's go to Effects and Presets, and under Animation Presets, User Presets, I've got a few templates here. And you can find these under the exercise files. And we're going to take the Kelly Smith name, and we're going to add in a bottom-up text. We'll go select Layer 2 for the designer and add a top-down. And when we play this back, it's not making a whole bunch of sense. And I designed this with the intent of using masks in conjunction with these presets. So let's select Layer 1 with Kelly Smith. And I'm going to park my playhead over here to where everything is in frame and create a brand new mask with my rectangle tool. I'm going to click and drag and hover over the entire area that the text can possibly go into. So when we make our changes inside Premiere, all the text is going to live inside of this area. Let's go ahead and select Layer 2 and do the same thing. Click and drag. And so now when we play this back, you'll see some of that text animate on from outside of the boundaries of our masked area. So layers 1 and 2, I want to bring this down below our shape layer, right on top of our footage. So now we have some nice motion. We have these elements, and this is almost ready to bring into Premiere. One thing we need to change is these labels. Right now it's matching what's on the screen here, Kelly Smith. But when we bring this into Premiere, this should be labeled the name of the field of text that this is going to occupy. So let's go ahead and change out the name of the layer here. Not the text over here, but the layer name. So I'm going to hit return, and this is going to be the person's name. Now remember, we're creating labels, so give it some meaning, obviously. We'll take this name and make it occupation. And so when we bring this into Premiere, you'll see that in action. Let's go ahead and do a couple other things. This bottom layer, After Effects is going to treat this as part of the template. So when we hand this off into Premiere, this footage is going to show up as well. Obviously, we don't want that, so we can certainly turn it off. But since we're building this as a template, we need to use this as reference. We can also use something called a guide layer. So I'm going to right-click this layer and set it to guide layer. And essentially what this means is that we can view it here inside the composition window, but it will not render and it will not show up in Premiere as part of our template. And you can see that here with this hashtag icon that it is set to a guide layer. And the last thing I want to do is add a little bit of flair, a little bit of finesse to this template. There's nothing here separating it. I don't know if it's going to work over all backgrounds. So let's go ahead and create an adjustment layer. And with this adjustment layer, anything that I throw on top of this is going to affect all the layers down beneath it. So I want to search for, in my effects, let's go ahead and look for a drop shadow. So that way we have a little bit of a drop shadow And of course, you're not seeing that drop shadow because we have this video layer on at the bottom. So just to confirm, let's go ahead and turn this off. And with our transparency grid enabled, you'll see that there is indeed a drop shadow with our adjustment layer. Okay, so let's add one more bit of finesse here. I'm going to look for sweep. And under generate, CC light sweep is a nice one. It just adds a little bit of sheen, a little bit of a glow, a light sweep. So let's go ahead and animate this across. So starting over here towards the beginning, we'll click on that stopwatch and we'll bring this out. And let's go ahead and bring this over. So with those two keyframes, I'm adding in a light sweep. We've added in a drop shadow to our adjustment layer. And now we can save. And let's go ahead and bring this inside of Premiere. What we're going to do is double click here to import into Premiere our After Effects project. So you can find that under Exercise Files, Chapter 3, Working with Type, and it's this third file here, Editable Text Templates in Premiere. We'll say Import, and Premiere is going to look at that After Effects composition, and it wants us to import our lower third. So we'll select that, and with that done, we can click and drag and put this over the first piece of footage. And because it's a clip, like any other, we can treat it like a clip that we can add ins and outs. We can change the in and out points. All that's in place. And there's our drop shadow with the light sweep. There's our Kelly Smith name. Obviously, this is not Kelly. This is now Felicia. So this is where the template comes really powerful. So let's go ahead and double click on our clip. And under the effect controls, you'll notice over here on the left-hand side, we have access to the master clip properties. And there's our naming convention. We have the labels that we previously designated for this top line. And so this is Felicia now. And she's the general manager. And by making those changes, Premiere is going to update that template. And let's go ahead and full screen this. We have a little bit of our lower third in action.
Every job is important, whether it's a small job, or a really large job.
So more or less, we have to have our...
Awesome. So now we can repurpose this template to make a lower third for her. Let's go ahead and duplicate this clip. We'll come over here, duplicate, and drag that over for Susie. And now let's double click on that clip, target the effect controls, the master clip properties, and rename Felicia to Susie. And Susie here is a glass blower. And now that we've made those changes,
we have to have our design ready to go. We have to have the...
We now have a lower third that has her information on it. We've got Felicia, we've got Susie, and we have all these thanks to building out a text template inside of After Effects. Now, because this is a text template and basically dynamically linked through After Effects, any changes that we go and make inside of After Effects are going to trickle down into our Premiere template. So for instance, maybe this line needs to come out a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and change out that shape. We'll double click and get access to the points. And with our selection tool enabled, I'm going to take this line and nudge it on down over here. So now we have a little bit of a longer line. And when we save, let's go ahead and come back into Premiere. That line now extends out and those changes trickle down. So it's a really handy way to make changes, and it's a live connection thanks to Dynamic Link. If you know for sure that you're not going to make any changes and you want to solidify this and commit these changes out, or that you want to hand this off to another editor, and this is a true template then at that point, what we can do is under Project, select our composition, and save this out as a different format instead of an After Effects project. We'll use File, Export, Composition as Text Template. And when we do this, let's go ahead and target our desktop. You'll notice that it comes out and saves out as a different extension altogether. So let's go ahead and save this out into the desktop. And what I'm going to do is in Finder, let's go ahead and target the desktop. It is now a .aecap. And functionality-wise, it's the same. You can still do and change out the person's name, their occupation. The only thing is this template now is saved out with all the assets, and it is no longer editable like you can with an original After Effects project. So again, it's all packaged up into one file, and you can no longer edit it except for what you have designated in the master clip properties. So person's name and occupation in this case. So here we saw how using text templates is a great way to package up a lower third for reuse in your edit using the various tools and the power of After Effects in conjunction with Premiere.